Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Bear Bubble Bath, and I'm going to be sipping on some wild berry tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, phthalo green, deep yellow, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, Mars black, and burnt sienna, which I sometimes call rust. So those are the colors I'll be using. You can certainly switch them up, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'll be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush, I have a number 5 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 0 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you could switch those up too, but that's what I'll be using. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you can download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting our background. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors that I'm using are white, black, green, yellow, and brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself 2 custom colors that we'll be using for the background. One of them is going to be like a nice light yellow type of a color, and then the other is going to be a nice muted green type of a color. I'll be doing the yellow in the dominant area in the background, and then we'll use a little bit of the green along the exterior. So I'm going to use my large brush for painting, but for demonstration purposes on mixing my colors, I'm going to use my medium brush. So I have pre-mixed my 2 colors so you can see where I'm headed, and I will show you how I got there. So the first color that I'll show you is my light yellow, which kind of looks like a light tan, but I know that because I've used my deep yellow in it, when I get it on my canvas and it next to all of the other colors, it's going to have definitely a yellow type of hue to it. So this is the color I'm going for. How I got to that was I used white, get it off of my brush here, a little bit of brown, and a little bit of yellow, and then just spin them together. So I've got mine a little bit more on the yellow side, but you could go more tan with yours, you could go more brown with yours, whatever is comfortable for you as a color, just go for it. It's your painting, you get to make it whatever you'd like. Then I'm going to do my green, so I'm just washing and drying my medium brush so I can show you how I got to that. So this is my green I'm going for. How I got there was I used my phthalo green, which is really vibrant and has a lot of intensity to it. And then I added gray to it, which is black and white. So I add a little bit of black and a little bit of white. So I'm in essence kind of desaturating my phthalo green by taking the vibrancy out of it, by adding that gray to it. So that's where I'm headed with my green color, maybe a little bit more white in here so it's a little bit lighter for me. There we go. And then once you've got those 2 colors, I'm going to be using my large brush for painting purposes. So I'm putting my medium brush away, taking out my large brush, I'm picking up that light yellow color that we created, and I'm going to put it on a large area in the majority of my canvas. So I'm just going really far. I'm going to bring it all the way to the left and all the way up to the top, all the way down to the bottom. I'm just going with a left to right kind of messy brush stroke right now. We're going to be blending it in with the green in a little bit, but this is just going to kind of get our areas started that we want to have this lighter yellow type of color. So again, bringing it out to these edges. I'm kind of preserving these, the corners of the canvas for the dominance of the green to be, to take over in those areas. But so that's why I'm leaving those corners to be had that way. So now that I've got this done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush. So I'm washing and drying my brush. And I'm going to pick up some of my custom green, and I'm just going to kind of put it in these four corners. So custom green is going in these four corners, and I'm pretty heavy-handed with it. You can certainly be less heavy-handed than I am, but I'm pretty heavy-handed with it. And then what I'm going to do, I'm not picking up any more paint. Actually, I'm just going to wipe a little bit off of my brush here. I was a little too heavy-handed. And then I'm just going to kind of start bringing it towards that yellow part. So once you get it towards that yellow part, you don't have to have a ton of paint. It doesn't have to be super thick at this point, but once I get it there, I'm going to start blending it in towards that middle section. So I'm going to start using a circular type of brush stroke to get the two sections to intermingle. So something like this. And if your yellow has already dried, you can always pick up a little bit of that yellow with your brush. I'm just trying not to blend it in too far right away. So this way I can maintain the color of the green on the exterior corners. Because if you start overlapping too much, you might get it too intermingled, and then you might lose that kind of intensity of it being more solid on the outside. And then I'm just going to start intermingling both of them. So I'm not going to wash my brush, but if you feel like you have a lot of paint on your brush at any time, you can just kind of squeeze it out on your paper towel. That will allow you to still be able to blend, but it won't force you to blend it too hard because you have too much paint on your brush. And then I'm just kind of bringing this in towards the center. I'm not touching my canvas very heavy right now. I'm using a very light pressure on my canvas, so that way it gives me this nice soft kind of circular effervescent kind of look to it, which we're doing a bear bubble bath, so we need effervescent feel to it. And then I'm going to just kind of blend this out just a little bit into my green areas, so that way I've got the same type of brush stroke going through the whole canvas, so something like this. And again, I keep wiping my brush off on my paper towel if there's any time that I feel I'm picking up too much of the yellow or I'm picking up too much of the green. I can always just keep wiping my brush off to control the quantity of paint that I have on my brush. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it. I'm not reloading my brush. I'm using a real light pressure to my brush, so this is allowing me to get them to really blend in nicely. And then once you've got this done, fiddle with it all you want. You can paint the edges of your canvas if you want to. But once you've got this done, we're going to use this our piece of chalk for the next step. So you can put your large brush away, take out your chalk, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to draw an outline for our bear in the tub. Oh, and the duck too. I'm going to be using my chalk. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that you would like, but I'm going to use my chalk. I do recommend that before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry, or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. So what I'm going to be doing is guiding you through a series of markers, and we're going to just connect those markers, and we're going for some nice basic shapes that we'll be able to utilize during our coloring in painting process. So no tiny details, just nice basic shapes. So we're going to start with the tub, so that way we have a place to put our bear. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find myself the center of my canvas, up and down, left to right. So for me, the center of my canvas is right about here. So I'm going to go almost an inch below that, give myself my first marker. Then I'm going to go almost 2 inches below that, give myself another marker. And then I'm going to come directly below that, about 2 inches away from the bottom of my canvas, give myself another marker in through there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of split the difference between these two and shoot myself all the way over to the right side of my canvas. It doesn't have to be exactly between these two, but somewhere in that vicinity. And I'm going to come back up just about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge, quarter to half of an inch away from the edge of my canvas, give myself a marker. And then I'll do the same thing on the left-hand side, about the center of here, come all the way over here, but I'm maybe about an inch away from the edge of my canvas on this side. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to connect these top 4 markers in a big oval. So for me, when I think of these old cast iron tubs, they can have like a wider edge or a more narrow edge. So if your oval, I'm going to attempt to do mine intentionally, is going to be a little bit wider here and more pointy here. That would makes sense. But if yours turns out perfectly oval or a little bit off, it's okay, because these kind of tubs can have a little asymmetry to them. So I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to bring this to, oops, that part of my chalk is not working. I'm going to bring this over to here, and I'm going to do a kind of a little pointy corner in through here, a pointy edge to my tub in through there, and then just bring this over here. And then when I go to do the one on the other side, I'm going to start curving it kind of later than I did here. So I'll bring this kind of wider in through here and then give it more of a rounded as opposed to a pointed corner like I did on the other side. It's not much of a difference, but you'll see how when I go to draw or paint, it'll make a difference. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this corner of the tub to here, and I'm going to do it with a little scooping line. So I'm going to take it from here, I'm going to bring it down in just a little bit like this, and then curve it and bring it straight across the bottom. The bottom needs to be kind of straight for the majority of it, so it doesn't look like the tub is going to fall over. And then on this side, you can do something similar, but it doesn't have to be exactly, because again, these tubs can look different from the front to the back. So mine will probably scoop in just a little bit more than the other side. So I'll start up in through here, scoop it in, and then just bring it down and ride it down that bottom to meet in through here. Then what I'm going to do, that's all I'm going to do for my tub, I'm going to put my bear on. So what I'm going to do, I've got my halfway marker in through here. I'm going to come up about another 2 inches, right about in through here. This is going to be the front part of the body, and that'll be the head in through there. So that's going to make a little corner for us. I'm going to come down into my tub, and maybe a slightly over to the right, not much, maybe about 1/8 of an inch or something right in through there. And then I'm going to make another marker over here. So this is maybe, I would say 2-3 inches in from the edge of my tub. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect, well, let me make one more marker so we can make sure that we connect it in a good way. So I'm going to go about half the distance between here and the top of my canvas, I would say somewhere about here, and come over to the right about 2 inches. Now I'm going to connect all my dots. So this is going to be just a curved line coming back to here. So this is the back of my bear, something like that. This is going to be the front chest of my bear, something like this. And now this is going to be kind of a interesting line because it's going to be the face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually come and give it a bump here and then a bump for its nose. So I don't want to go too far out with the nose. So if you come about halfway between here and here, so that's maybe about here, right about here, and then I'm going to come out to the left maybe about 1.5 inches to 2 inches, somewhere about here. That's going to be about the tip of my nose. So I can just take here to here, connect like this, and then from here to here, I'm going to connect it with a curved line like this, and then I'm going to bring it down for the nose, something like this. I'm going to give myself a couple of ears. So right about here, I'm going to just kind of go up maybe about an inch, and then back down. This is the ear on the other side, and then this is going to be the ear closest to us, so it's going to be more rounded, and it will come into the head a little bit when we do the painting process, but right now we just need that lump. And then for my little ducky, I'm just going to put a little kind of a teardrop shape for the body that's going to overlap the nose a little bit. I'll do a little tiny circle for the head. And that's all I'm going to be doing for my outline. You can erase this line if you wanted to. You could just use a brush with a little bit of water, but we will get rid of that during the painting process anyway. So we're going to be using our large brush for the next step. So you can put your chalk away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the base coat for our bear and the tub. So I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are brown, black, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a tannish gray for the tub, and then we'll be using black and brown on our bear. So I'm going to do my tub first. So I've pre-mixed it here so you can see where I'm headed. Actually, I'll use my medium brush to mix again so you guys can see. So this is a lot of brown and white, so you can take a good amount of brown, a little bit of white, and then I use just a little bit of black in there as well, so it ends up more of like a brownish gray as opposed to a blackish gray. And you can keep obviously manipulating that color as much as you want. This is looking pretty good for me, this color in through here. So once you've got it in the tone that you want, what you're going to do is you're just painting the entire tub in with that color. So the only thing that I would recommend is when you get to the area where the inside meets the outside, you can just leave a tiny bit of your chalk mark showing, and that way you'll have that as kind of a barrier or a bit of information as you go through the full painting process of those sections. If your paint ends up being a little bit streaky or not fully covered during this step, like if you see some of your background color, don't worry about it. This is the first coat. All we're looking to do right now is give ourselves a base color to work from when we go to do our highlights and our shadows and adding information for the contours of the of this particular object. So we don't need it to be perfect. We just want to have a conducive color to work with to make it look like it has dimension and all that good stuff. So just pulling this over into this area in through here, and if you still see some of your chalk mark after this, again, no worries. We'll just leave that, and by the time we're done painting the whole thing, you'll have plenty of opportunity to get rid of that piece of, or that little bit of chalk. So I'm just going right around here, and again, same thing, like when I'm by the bear, if I bump into the bear, that's okay, because he's going to be covered with bubbles, and he's going to be covered with fur and all kinds of stuff, so no worries into there. You could even use a smaller brush as you're coming around these corners if that makes it easier for you, but this is working out for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash my brush so I can put a different color on my bear. So I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm going to start with black and brown at the bottom of the bear, and then I'm going to work my way up to just brown. So wash and dry my brush. I'm putting a little bit of black and brown on my brush, not a lot, just a little bit on the tip. Again, you'll probably bump into your tub along the way. That's totally fine. I'm not necessarily going for a solid color here. What I'm going for is the makings of some bear fur texture. So again, you'll see I'm bumping into my my tub, which is okay. As I work my way up, I'm going to kind of be utilizing this little jabbing type of brush stroke, just so I don't have, you could even dot it, whatever works for you. I just am starting the fur making process. So this is going to give me just a little bit more texture and fluffiness to it. As I come towards the edges, I can just kind of bring out this little softness to the edge of the bear in through there. And then once I've got this area on in through here, I'm going to just pick up brown without washing my brush. And this is going to end up getting lighter and lighter as it comes up the bear. So that way it ends up looking like it's got a different tone as we're going towards the top of the bear, and it'll look like it's more towards, you know, a light source or towards the top of the bear. So, and if you're at this point and you have too much black on your brush, if you still have a lot of black on your brush, you could certainly wash and dry your brush. But if you had just used a very little bit on it initially, it should be working its way off. As I get towards the face and this little duck, I'm just going to kind of go right around it. I don't need, again, anything major. Even in the nose part, I'm not going for anything perfect right now. You most likely won't be able to do a big brush stroke in through here. So on the face, you can just kind of tap that brush to give you this textural type of effect. Same thing with my ears, just going to kind of use the corner or the side of my brush just to get that color in there. Same thing over here, just almost just lightly kind of tapping my brush. So I've got the color there, but I didn't really need to do all that much to it. I need a little bit more brown on my brush so I can get the rest of the face in through here. And then we are going to be using, we're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be adding the highlights and the shadows on the tub. This is not going to include our little claw feet. We'll do those later. This, in essence, is just allowing us to give the tub the rest of its shape, and so we can start building other fun stuff around it. So I'm going to use my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use are my gray, black, and white. And if I need to go into, I'll probably use some brown too, and some brown. So my light source to me is probably up above and on the other side where we see this big kind of glow behind the bear. So I'm going to be adding a lot of shadow on the inside of the tub in through here. A lot of shadow maybe underneath the rim of the tub in through here. And then I'll add a little bit of a highlight in the base of the tub here to give it its roundness. Then we'll add super highlights around the edges where I feel like that light would kind of be illuminating or backlighting them. So I'm going to start on the inside with my shadows, then I'll put my shadows on the outside and we'll work our way to the light. So I'm going to start with black and brown on my brush at the same time. I'm going to be doing this shadow a little bit away from the edge of the tub, and I will a lot of times also use a bit of water on my brush. So if I'm going to use a little water, I'll show you the technique, so if you want to use it too, you can. I just kind of dip my brush in my water before or after I put the paint on it, and then just tap it on my paper towel. That allows me to have some good moisture within the bristles and allows me to keep that paint flowing as I go through the process. So I'm going to go a little bit away from the edge, something like this, and then I'm just going to start to rub it in or away from the edge, so it'll be rubbing in towards the actual tub itself. So something like this. And then as I'm going for this blend, if it's not blending as much as I want it to, I can just pick up some of my original gray. So I just picked up that gray, and then I can get these two colors to blend in with one another. And also know that we will be, I'm picking up some more brown and black. We're going to be putting bubbles in the tub as well. So this is just providing us with the background information behind those bubbles to make sure that we have some good dimension in this tub. So that wasn't enough of a shadow for me, so I just picked up a little bit more of the black and the brown so I could get it to go a little bit deeper in that corner of the tub. And then again, we can certainly hide anything with bubbles when we get to that point. I'm going to do the same thing over here. So black and brown are going on my brush. I'm going to just make sure I kind of line this up with here. So a little bit of black and brown is on my brush, bringing this right around the edge. I think that some of this edge would be illuminated as a curve of the tub, but this is going pretty good for me in through here, just a little bit in through there. I'm picking up some of my gray, get it to blend in. I didn't wash my brush when I picked up that gray, so just getting that to blend in a little bit. I'm going to pick up my brown and black again so I can do a shadow underneath this rim, the rim on our side. So this is going to be my rim in here. So I'm going to go a little bit away from my my bear, so maybe somewhere in through, I would say 1/4 of an inch or so. So something like this, and I'm just going to bring it along like this. It's not going to be perfect right on the bat. We'll make it more perfect in a second here. And then once I've got, that's looking good, now I'm going to pick up some more black and brown to get this to kind of fade out. I'm going to use a little bit more water on my brush too, so I can get that smoothness that I'm looking for. And sometimes I like to just kind of go back and forth with a little bit of that water on my brush to get it to blend out into the neighboring areas. So you'll find, I mean, there's 101 different ways to blend paint, and it's just a matter of your own personal brushwork. You'll find your rhythm where you know, oh, if I put just a tiny bit more water on my brush, I can get this to blend in with that neighboring area. Or if I put a little bit more black on my brush, I can get it to go a little bit deeper and darker underneath a specific area. So as you're, learning your own way that your brush is going to work with your hand and with the thoughts in your head, you can certainly, have a lot of trial and error as you're going through the process. So just know it's not necessarily, the way that works for me might not always be the way that works for you. So you can certainly use, lots of different painters' instructions or tips, and just find what works for you. Everybody's got their own ways that work best for them. I'm going to pick up some of my gray now so I can get this to blend in over here with this side. And I may find that after I get these shadows and this information on here, I will let it dry, and if there's any other areas that I want to modify or blend, I certainly will. Just picked up some more of my gray just to make sure that this blends in pretty smoothly underneath this edge of the tub, because I want that to kind of look almost straight across as a blend. And then now what I'm going to end up doing, I'm just using more of this gray to bring almost like making sure I have a full coverage on the main area in through here, but I am in a second going to start adding my highlights. I know that my most subtle highlight is going to be on this side of the tub in through here, in order to just give it the contour to make it look like it's got some shape to it. So right now I'm just kind of making sure I've got a good regular coat to it, and then right now I'm going to start adding my gray plus white to my brush. So I have gray plus white on my brush, and I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight in through here, which is going to make this part of the tub look like it's kind of popping out a bit. You could bring this all the way across if you wanted to. It's going to be however severe or however bubbly you want that tub to look, how round you want it to look like it's popping out. I'm picking up some of my gray just to make sure that I've got this blended in. And I love using like a circular type of brush stroke when I'm doing these small blends, but if you wanted to use a larger brush, you could certainly feel free to do so. So that's looking pretty good. I think I want a little bit more coming in through here just so I can make sure that I've got some good volume on that tub so it doesn't flatten out over here. So if I don't put a little bit here, it could look a little flat. So I am putting just a little bit of a lighter tone in through here of that gray. And again, that's just going to allow for the shape and form of that tub to appear. So that's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just adding the other highlights that I want throughout the tub. So I definitely want to finish up this edge up in through here. This is where I can close off any lines that I was using as a separating line. So I'm going to pick up my gray plus white on my brush to give myself the finished edge up in through here. I think I need to just put a little bit more gray in through there just to drop that down and make sure that I've got that all colored in. But I'm using gray plus white to get this edge in through here. And again, I don't need it perfect. I've got bubbles coming. Bubbles can hide a whole lot of stuff. So this is just really identifying the edge of the tub, making sure I've got it fully painted. So as I come around here, I can see that I've got a little bit of an area that might need tending to, but again, gray plus white is where I'm headed, just along this rim. I'm picking up just a little bit more gray so I can close off this gap in through here. Just make sure that it blends with that inside of the tub, and gray plus white is going back on my brush just to make sure that I've got that edge colored. And then what I'm going to do, once I've got this, the edge done with gray and white, I'm going to then do a nice bright highlight in my strategic areas. So this is still just gray plus white to get my edge to be finished and identified. Slowing down here like this. And then once I've got this in, and I'm using quite a bit of paint on this edge just so I can get my brush to flow nicely and have some good corners to it, but you could certainly use a minimal amount of paint wherever your comfort zone is. And I'm just getting around this corner in through here, making sure everything kind of works together. Oops, I just went into the inside of my tub. Nothing a bubble won't hide. And then once I've got this done, that's looking pretty good to me. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of going back and forth here. I'm going to pick up just white paint. I'm not going to wash my brush, but I'm going to pick up just white paint and give myself some real bright highlights. So I've got maybe right along this edge in through here. We'll put an extra bit of white, maybe up on this top side because it's the closest to our backlit light source. Maybe a little bit on this side over in through here. So again, this is just white on my dirty brush, just giving myself this extra highlight back on these back sides. And then I'll also do that on the sides of my tub right in through here. So I have white on my brush. I'm going to go down the edge of my tub like this, as if it's being illuminated from the other side. And I'll do the same thing over here. So a little bit of white on my brush is going to illuminate the edge of that tub like it's being lit up from the other side. And then you just kind of fiddle with it. If you have any little adjusting things to do, feel free to do so. Then we're going to be using let's use our large brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the shadow underneath our tub. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black and brown. I'm also going to be using water in order to get it to kind of spread out. You could certainly use any kind of liquid medium that you want, or just use a little bit of water, or thinned out paint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a pretty dark shadow right underneath my tub, and then I'm going to just get it to dissipate or become more translucent and transparent as it goes away from the tub. So I'm going to put a teeny tiny bit of black and brown on my brush, just a teeny tiny bit. Then I'm going to put a teeny tiny bit of water. I'm not dipping anything except for the tip of my brush because I don't need too much water to start, but I do want it to have a little bit of moisture in there. I'm going to start right underneath. I don't want to bring it all the way to the edges. So in order for this tub to look like it's up, you're going to want to bring it in underneath the corners and through here. You don't want to bring the shadow all the way. So I'm going to start right in through here. I'm going to just kind of push that shadow right to the bottom of the tub and kind of slide my brush back and forth, left to right. And then right as the tub kind of starts to turn or starts to curve, that's when I start disconnecting that shadow from the tub. And then I know it's going to come out in a kind of a diagonal way. So I'm going to get this shadow to start dissipate, to get it to start fading out. I'm going to just lightly brush my brush like that. I feel I have a lot of paint still left on my brush, so I'm squeezing my brush in my paper towel right now to get rid of some of that paint. And then I can just kind of take what's on my canvas and just just start pulling it out, start rubbing it out into the makings of the shadows. Let me pull this down a little bit further so you can see what I'm doing in through here. So I just had a little bit of my background green too, must have been on my easel. And then I'm just kind of pulling this out. So if it's not dark enough or you feel like you want it, you know, more severe or more black or more brown, you can certainly continue to add those colors. So I just picked up a tiny bit more black and brown just so you can see what I'm talking about. So as it's drying, I can still just add a little bit more intensity to it. So you can certainly do that if you feel that that's necessary. You can even pull it more toward at an angle if you think that that's going to add to the kind of intensity of the size of it. Bringing it out towards the sides will make it look like it's spreading out farther. So, you know, you can play with those visual effects by just, you know, kind of steering the viewer with the shape of that shadow. So that's looking pretty good. And we are going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint an eye, a nose, a mouth, and a duck. Sounds like the beginning of a joke. Sorry. So we're going to use our our medium brush. I'm going to be using black, brown, rust, yellow, and white. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do base coat for my duck and my features, and then we'll do some details after that. So I'm actually going to be doing my base coat for my duck with white. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I have this darker background and I want the yellow on my duck to be as bright as it can be. So in order for me to achieve that, I need to do a base coat of white for my duck. So that way when I go to use my deep yellow, it will have this white as a background and it will be able to be its truest and brightest yellow that it can be. So that's why I'm opting to do a base coat of white. So I'm just going a nice thin coat so it doesn't take too long to dry, because we're going to be hitting it in a minute with its other colors. And again, you can totally, you know, modify the shape at all. Maybe I think I want the chest a little bit bigger in through here, so that works out for me. So once I've got the base coat of my duck, actually I'm going to put a little mouth on it too, little beak in through there. Maybe he's talking to the bear. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put some black paint on my brush to do my base coat for my eye. So I'm going to have my eye directly below the corner of my ear and maybe almost at the top of the nose. So I'm just going to do like a little oval shape for my eye. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself just some light sketcherly marks underneath the eye and then maybe up above the eye in order to just kind of give myself maybe a little bit of, I don't know, just fur detail around the edges. So something like that will work for me. And then I'm going to use my black. I think I'm going to put a little bit of brown on my brush too, black and brown for my nose. So we're only going to see a part of the nose because the duck is kind of taking up some of it. So I'm just going to kind of give myself this little arcing line in through here and just kind of painting it in, maybe a little bit more brown on my brush, just to give myself a little bit of a starting point. We'll put some more details on it in a minute, but this just gives me my starting point. I'm going to do the same thing for my mouth. So my mouth kind of comes right below my nose, so I just kind of pulled that down in through there, and then a little bit of a friendly expression. And I'm not doing a firm line, just kind of the remnants on my brush will help me to get that in through there. So now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to paint my duck with yellow. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm picking up some yellow paint, just making sure that my duck is dry enough, and it is. So I'm going to go ahead and paint my, my duck yellow. So again, just kind of using a thin coat so that way I can work on other details of it in a few minutes, but that you can see now how bright my yellow is. Again, if I hadn't used that white base coat, I would not have been able to achieve this brightness for the color of the duck. So just putting a nice thin coat so it won't take too long to dry. I don't need to put it on the beak right now because the beak is going to get a different color. So while this is kind of sitting for a minute, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my bear eye. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm picking up some burnt sienna. I'm going to do a little bit of a curved kind of line for the colored part of the eye. So a little curved line for the colored part. Wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of white paint. I'm going to give myself a little kind of corner to the eye back in through here. So just a little itty bit of a corner back in through here, just the white of the eye. If you bump into your burnt sienna like I just did, that's okay. I'm going to now pick up a tiny bit more black because I feel like I want a little bit more black on the outside of this eye in through here. So something like that. And I'm going to, oops, I just made a loud noise on my palette. I'm going to wash and dry my brush again, and I'm going to put some sparkles in my eye. So I'm going to pick up burnt sienna and white to put maybe a little bit of skin on the inside part of this eye in through here. So this is burnt sienna and white, and then I'm going to put a little sparkle in the eye. I wipe my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of white, just do a little kind of sparkle crossing over that colored part. And that's all I'm going to do for that. You could certainly, you know, make any little modifications you want, but I'm going to now work on my duck. I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of burnt sienna to do my duck bill. So just paint that with a little bit of burnt sienna. So it might look a little orangey-ish next to the yellow, which looks great. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of brown paint on my dirty brush and give myself a little shadow underneath my duck. So a little shadow underneath in through here. So this is just a little bit of brown to give myself a little bit of shadow. I'm going to do the same thing in the neck of the duck. So a little bit of brown in through here. Give myself a little shadow in through there. Maybe a little bit up the back side of the neck as well. So that just gives my little duck some shape. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of black paint. Give myself a little duck eye. So a little duck eye in through here. That'll work for that. I'm going to put a tiny little sparkle in my duck eye. So wash and dry my brush. Pick up a teeny bit of white paint. Give myself a little tiny sparkle in my duck eye. And now I'm going to give my duck a little bit of a highlight. So I washed and dried my brush. Picking up a tiny bit of white again. Just to give myself a little bit of a highlight on the side of the duck. So right in through here will give me a little bit of a highlight, again, just to show the shape of the duck, and a tiny bit at the top of the duck. So a little bit of white paint on my brush gives me a little bit of shape on there. And then you can fiddle with, oh, I need to finish my nose on my bear. So that's looking so cute to me. So my nose on my bear, I don't really need to do much. I'm going to pick up brown with a teeny tiny bit of white paint on my brush. I just want to give it a little bit of shape maybe in through here. So brown with a little bit of white, and then maybe just down the center of that nose to indicate the separation of the nostrils. I don't really need to do anything with the mouth, so we're going to have fur around it, so that's all I'm going to do. So we are going to be using this, let's use this medium brush. I think I said I was going to be using my small brush for all this stuff, but I ended up using my medium brush. So we're going to use our medium brush for the next step. So you can wash it and dry it and get ready. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish our bear. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use are burnt sienna, probably black, brown, the light yellow color that we created and white. And if there's any other colors that I'm going to use, I'll let you know. So really what I'm looking to do at this point is kind of give a little bit of detail in my ears, lighten up the top of the head and maybe the side of the face so it looks like we've got a little bit of dimension and light and form. And then I'm going to give some additional fur texture, but I really don't need to do much because it's pretty good the way that it is. But I want to maybe give the information that there's some front legs, so I'll put some strategically placed fur in through here, and then backlight from the light behind it. I'll lighten up some of the edges, and we'll use the burnt sienna as a nice, great additional tonal value. We'll be using the light color, the light yellow, as like a part golden fur. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to start with my dark stuff, so it's going to be my ears. I'm going to add a little bit of black and burnt sienna on my brush. This one's going to be in front, so I'm going to just be using this really kind of carefree brush strokes to get this darker version of fur in through here and have these light or fluffy kind of edges to it. So black more in the center, and then as I work my way towards the tips of the ear, I'll be using a little bit more of the burnt sienna, so that way you'll have a little bit more fluffy edges to it. So right now, without washing my brush, I'm just going to pick up my burnt sienna, give myself some nice little fluffy edges to it. And then on the other ear, I think I want a little bit more black on the inside of this too, just so it looks like it's kind of deep dark ear. So that looks pretty good. On this ear over in through here, I know that the top of the head kind of resides right here. So I want this to be the ear is going to be pretty dark. So I'm putting a little bit more of my black and my burnt sienna, but this is going to be the outside part of the ear. So it's still dark, but I'm just in my head knowing that it's the outside of the ear where this is the inside of the ear. So something like that. And because I'm using this smaller brush, it's allowing me to not overpaint. And it's allowing me to just put these colors in a nice believable type of brush stroke. So they're nice and fluffy along the edges. And it looks like he's got some good movement to his hair, or his fur. So something like that. I don't really need much more for darkness. I've got darkness underneath here, but that's kind of already implied. So now what I'm going to do, without washing my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that background gold plus brown, and I'm going to give myself a little bit of the illusion of the arms that are kind of in through here. So just with some real minimal type of brush strokes, I'm just kind of lightening up a little bit of this area in through here. So it's going to give the illusion to the viewer that maybe this is kind of puffed out a little bit more, where the legs are kind of, bumping out a bit. Now I just picked up brown in order to get it to blend into the neighboring fur that we had already established. And I'm just kind of going in a quick downward type of motion, but not straight down. So I do give a little bit of bend or curve to my brush, and then just making sure I've got everything over in through here the way that I want. Again, we're going to have lots of bubbles and stuff like that that are going to take care of it. So now I'm picking up a little bit burnt sienna and brown to put a little bit of burnt sienna in through here and maybe give a little bit more direction to the fur. So now I'm just kind of bringing it in a curved type of manner. And you can do this a lot or a little, whatever is working for you. But because I'm using a different color on top of that base brown, it's allowing for us to kind of see those directional changes that I'm incorporating in the fur. And you could certainly use this burnt sienna. Whoops, I just picked up a little bit of yellow too. You can certainly use this burnt sienna coming down in through here as well, and that will make it look really nice. I'm going to put a little bit more up here of this burnt sienna just to kind of get it to transition into the face in through here. So now as I work my way towards that face, I want there to be some lightness in through here to tell that the face is bumping out, and also that it's got the light source is illuminating it. So I'm going to use a little bit of that light yellow plus brown on my brush to start this out. And I know that I want some kind of long pieces on the back side of this face in through here. So this is my light yellow plus a little bit of brown on my brush. And if you ever get to a point where you're like, whoa, I overdid that, you can always just give it a minute to dry and come back and add some more brown on top of it. It's a building process when it comes to fur. So if you get to a point where you feel like you did too much, you can always, like in through here, I could just bring back a little bit of my, oops, that's not enough, bring back a little bit of my brown to just kind of get it to blend into the neighboring fur, get it to make more sense. So whatever you need to do to just kind of continue that thought process, it works. So I just picked up some more of my light yellow in order to get some of this brightness on the face. And I really just want this part of the face to kind of pop out a little bit. So I'm using these little brush strokes in order to give myself some nice volume in that fur. I'm going to put some more on the top of the head. I feel like it would dip in a little bit in through here, so I'm not going to brighten that up too much. But maybe it would definitely be brighter on top of the head in through here. So again, this is just my light yellow right now. I'll add a little bit more white to it in a minute, but this is just going to get that progression to the light colors. So as you're building fur or anything that you want a lot of dimension in, working yourself progressively towards those lighter colors, which means don't go for the lightest color first. You just progressively get to the lighter color by using shades that will lead you there in that direction. That's going to allow you to get lots of dimension. So again, right now I've got my my light yellow. I just picked up a tiny bit of brown paint as well, so I can get this around these eyes just to make sure I'm getting some good direction on the fur. That's another thing that you want to try and get in a believable way, is the direction that the fur is going. If I've got my fur coming down like this, it looks believable, but if it was all sticking in different directions, it wouldn't necessarily look like this type of fur for this type of animal. So I try and incorporate those characteristics when I'm painting. So I'm going to add a little bit of white paint to my brush now, so I can get a little bit more lightness on this cheek area in through here, so it pops out just a little bit more. And I'll put this on the forehead as well, so a little bit more white paint on my brush. And I'll also add some bright tips to the ears and to the edges of the fur. So white paint is on my brush right now. I'm going to put a couple of strategic bright spots along the edges of the ears so they look like they're being illuminated by that light source that's behind. This also helps to add fluffiness to it. I'm picking up white plus a little bit of that light yellow too down this back side. So this way maybe it's not quite as bright as everywhere else, but it still gives you the illusion of that lightness back in through here. And I can bring it just a little bit into the fur. That would be great, into the fluffy back fur. That's good. And then maybe a little bit of my white right underneath this chinny chin chin. So again, right now I'm just adding the brightness from that light source that's on the other side. So I can do that down this front fur too, just to again get that illuminated. It'd probably stop a little bit in the tub. So that's looking pretty good. And then I would just kind of keep fiddling with it. If you want, like I just added a little bit more of my light yellow, maybe a little bit more in through here, just to give those long pieces. And then you just fiddle with it. If you want more darkness, add more darkness. If you want more lightness, add more lightness. And then we're going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this medium brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint some legs on the tub. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are gray, black, and white. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my legs in place, and then we'll put a little highlights and shadows, and we'll be done. So these type of tubs can come with all different kinds of cool feet, leg things on them, so you could really use your imagination and make them look whatever way that you like. I'm going for a style of tub that is called the claw foot. So these actually kind of look like little claws, so like little feet to animals. So I thought it'd be kind of cute because it's a bear. Bears have claws, so it was appropriate to do a claw foot tub. So I'm going to be having my two legs kind of coming out in this direction. I'm going to start with my gray paint. I'll do my right one first. So as the tub is kind of coming around this corner, that's where I'm going to start it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself this kind of first mark that's a little bit below the tub like this. And then I'm going to just make myself these little scalloped type of edges to it. You might not be able to see the gray very well at the moment because it's on top of gray paint, but when we make the details, you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So I'm going to do the same thing over on the other side. So I'm going to find my spot that I want. So it's going to be right, you know, along the curve, and bring it down just a little bit further than my tub. And you can find whatever way you want to decorate this. I'm just kind of bringing this up almost like little flower petals, something like that. And then once I've got that on there, I can put the leg portion. So I can just bring this down kind of in a curved manner from the center. I'm just coming down maybe about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll put the foot on it. So again, just gray paint, bringing this down in like a curved type of way. And then I'm going to have maybe 4 little toes to my claw. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So just 4 little bumps at the bottom of that claw. And again, you could have yours as many as you want. So I'm just making sure I do this the way that I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other side. So just pulling this down in a little bit of a curved way to get the leg portion, and then I'm just going to bring this out to these sides like this, and then give myself a couple of 1, 2, 3, and then 4 for my bumps to my claw foot. And then once I've got that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of black paint on my brush without washing it, and I'm going to put a little decorative kind of shadow along the edge of the top. So this will just kind of give me a little bit of a shadow and a little bit of dimension in it. I'm just picking up a tiny bit more black on my brush. You could, I suppose, bring these little dark marks in a little bit just to give it a little bit more scalloped of an edge, I guess. And you could, if you wanted to, you could do this with the gray paint on your brush at the same time. So you could have like the gray and the black on your brush at the same time just to give you that little bit extra oomph in the color. I'll do the same thing at the bottom. This is also going to act as a little shadow underneath the foot and through here, but it helps to give you just that little bit of dimension in the actual piece itself. I'm picking up black plus my gray to put a little bit of a shadow on the leg portion. So this is black plus the gray on my brush to give me a little bit of a shadow on the leg portion. So that way it gives it a little bit of dimension too. You can even bring it in through there. This is the inside of the leg because I feel like that's the farthest away from our light source. So just a little bit on the inside portion of the leg and then just bring it down in a little bit of a curve. And then I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put gray plus white on my brush. And again, I'm just looking for some added detail to it so it looks like it's got some dimension. So gray plus white on my brush, making sure I have a good quantity of both. And then I can add just little pops of highlights on these little guys in through here, and then a little pop of a highlight on the leg, and then on the edge of the toes or the claw that would pop out the most to the viewer. So that would be the piece that, like the knuckles of the claw. So I'm putting my lightest area in through there. So that's a little bit of my gray plus white on my brush, and I'll finesse it a little bit in a minute, but right now just kind of getting that brightness on there, a little bit down the leg, and then just a touch in these little guys in through here. So that's the gist of it. Then what I would do is I would just kind of finesse it a little bit more. I would just take these little highlights, and if I needed to add more gray, I certainly would, but this is kind of looking pretty good to me right now. So I'll let it dry for a minute, and if I need to pop on any brighter stuff, I certainly will. I am going to be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got your legs on here, actually, hold that thought. I want a little shadow coming off of them. I'm washing and drying my brush. I'm picking up a tiny bit of black and brown. I want a little bit deeper of a shadow underneath here. Sorry about that. A little bit more of a shadow. Just kind of, here, let me move this so we can see it. So it looks like they are casting a little, I'm thinking I wanted this better. It looks a little bit more appropriate to me with a little longer shadow in through here. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this medium brush, and just rub this in here. There we go, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna paint some bubbles. I'm gonna be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm gonna use are black, white, my light yellow, my light green, and that might be it. Or maybe some of my, I don't know. If I use any other colors, I'll let you know, but I think that's what the other colors that I'm going to use. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-mix myself a different kind of gray. So the gray that we used for the tub was a warm gray. It had a lot of brown in it. Right now I want to make a cool gray for the base coat of my bubbles so it looks different than the tub. You could certainly use a little bit of, if you know, I'm just going to use black and white, which will get me there, but if you wanted to use a touch of blue or something else in it, you could certainly do that. So I have pre-mixed myself my cool gray, which is right here. So how I got to that was I simply just used black and white. So white with just a tiny bit of black paint will get you into the cool gray region, as opposed to this brownish gray that we used before. So you can see that one's more brown than the other. So that's how we'll be able to tell the difference. And I'm starting my bubbles with this color so I can work my way to the bright whiteness of them at the end. So I've got my cool gray on my brush. I'm going to go right along the top edge of this, of my tub, the top edge of the bottom edge of my tub, right along here, so I can make sure that I'm got it abutted nicely to that. And then what I'm going to do is, oh, so I missed a little spot there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making some bubbles. So I'm going to just utilize my brush in a circular kind of fashion to give myself the bubbles in the tub. We'll add some, you know, extra effervescent kind of stuff in a minute, but right now I'm just going to be utilizing this gray in order to get myself a top fluffy edge to the bubbles. And because I'm using my brush in a circular fashion, it's giving me these soft rounded type of edges. You can utilize these bubbles to hide things. If you have things that didn't work out exactly as you had planned, you could certainly utilize these as your to your benefit. But I'm going to have, you know, some a little bit higher than others, and so that way it looks like there's, you know, some depth in the bubble assembly, I guess. So I'm bringing this all the way over to here. While I have this gray on my brush, I'm going to start all of the other bubbles too. So I'm going to use this gray as just like a little information as to where I want the other bubbles as they're floating out of the tub to go. So you can make 100, you could make, 10, you could make as many as you want. I'm just really utilizing a circular type of brush stroke, and they don't even have to be full-fledged circles. You could do partial circles. We're going to be making a lot of colors or adding a lot of colors to these bubbles, so that's going to allow us to make them look more realistic. So I'm making different size ones. I'm making some small ones, some big ones, maybe one up by here. I'm not coloring in the whole thing. Some of them I color in a little bit more than others. Some of them are small, some of them, maybe this one goes off the canvas, so you can really have fun. I'm going to do some in the back over in through here. So again, this is just the gray. I'm overlapping some of them in front of the tub. So again, those are little tricks that add more dimension to it. Maybe one just kind of floating up in through here. So now that I've got that done, I'm just going to start picking up white paint on my dirty brush, and I'm going to give myself some top brightness to the bubbles that are in the tub here. So again, I'm using a circular motion, but I'm not going all the way in one specific circle. If I wanted a little bubble to come up, I could certainly do that. But as far as just the frothiness of the bubbles in the tub, I'm just kind of maneuvering my brush a little bit on the top side of them so they look like they've got a little bit of brightness and more of a white look to them than a gray look. So the white is going to allow these to look more, white, soapy, foamy kind of way, as opposed to just gray. Because I associate white more with soap than I do gray, but the gray adds the dimension to it. So now that I've got that, now I'm going to use this white in my floaty bubbles. So when I go to use this, I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just really going to do a quick kind of swipe in a curved direction in that bubble. Somewhere in that bubble. You could do it in the middle. Maybe you do two on one. You could do it on different sides. I think my trick is just to kind of go fast and not really think about it too much as to the perfect placement of it. I'm just kind of doing these quick, fun swipes, but with a little bit of a curve to it. You can do it over the gray. You can do it next to the gray. You can do it in, 2 or 3 different places. That's just gonna, again, allow you to get some good dimension. Now that I've got the white in there, now I get to incorporate my other colors. So I'm gonna pick up some of my light yellow, and it's a bubble, so it's gonna reflect all the stuff around it. So I've got my light yellow, so I'm just adding little light yellow marks in my bubbles. And maybe you don't hit them all with it, but maybe you hit some of them with it. And as you get into a higher contrast area, like these darker areas up above, you're going to really be able to see how much that addition of that light yellow really makes a difference. Now I do conversely the same thing. I'm going to take I wiped my brush off. I'm taking some of my dark or my custom green. Now I get to incorporate that in some of my bubbles. So this is one of those real fun steps that you get to, explore these reflective values and get them to look as, realistic as you want. And again, using the colors from the surroundings is going to make these little fun bubbles look a little bit more realistic, because that's what a bubble does. It's going to reflect all the colors in the atmosphere around it. And then you just kind of keep tweaking it and playing with it. And if there's anything other you want to do, like I think I just want to put a little bit more white to get a little bit more sparkle in some of these. You can certainly keep fiddling with it all you want. We're going to actually use our small brush for the next step. So once you've got your bubbles on here, you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I think I'm gonna go bottom right on this one. I'm using my small brush. I'm gonna use black paint. I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol or whatever you'd like for your identifying mark to be. Is totally fine. It's your painting. You get to sign it however you'd like. And that's going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself an adorable couple of little creatures getting clean. I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.